Welcome to the third lecture or third class or third week of our class in human resources management. So the idea today is to cover another 3 weeks, three chapters of your book. So chapters 4, chapter 5, and chapter 6. So chapter 4 is about designing jobs, means what exactly an organization needs, what kind of jobs or position needs to cover. And chapter 5 is how to basically recruit resources. So you basically, you identify on one side what kind of jobs you need to cover, then you make recruitment, and then chapter 6 is about selection. So basically, this is the topic for today. So imagine for a second that you are building a company. And so what kind of people do you need, or even better, what kind of people for what jobs you need? And so you start thinking, okay, let's say I'm I am in the business of selling consultancy, and so first of all, I need somebody who delivering delivering consultancy services. So I need consultants. Then I need clients, and in order to have clients, maybe I need somebody who is an expert in sales and marketing. And then, of course, because I make money and I have to pay cost, I need somebody who is an expert in accounting and finance, and so on. So, of course, if you establish a company, a very simple company, 3 or 4 people is easy. But if you have to deal with a company, is a large company, hundreds and hundreds of people, to define the kind of roles you have to cover, to define the kind of jobs that must be done in the organization is much more difficult. And so the very first thing you have to do is to analyze how the company works. You have to basically picture, not only in your mind, but on the paper, all the different activities that are in your company. So we receive a call from a client who wants our services. Then we need somebody who prepare offers for customers that they want to know how much they are going to pay. Then we need somebody who collect the money. Then we need somebody who open the door if some clients comes to our office. We need somebody who pays for the bills of the office. We need somebody who answers the phone. We need somebody who is delivering the consultancy service. We need somebody who is fixing the light or the computers when they are broken, and so on. So basically, you need to make an analysis of all the activities involved in the company. Only then you can start defining the jobs that needs to be done. So again, imagine to have it's called workflow, because basically all the activities involved in the company, how the flows of activities are moving in and out in the company because of the accounting, the marketing, the consultancy, the maintenance, and so on. And then you define what kind of job needs to be done. For example, somebody has to be responsible for maintenance. Somebody has to be an expert in computers. Somebody has to be an expert in consultancy services. Somebody has to be an expert in marketing and sales. Somebody has to be an expert in accounting, and so on. So a job description is a piece of paper that defines very clearly what is a particular job. So in your book, there is, for example, something about train crew service at Union Pacific. And so there is a job description, basically what a person that eventually, an individual who eventually will go to this, doing this job has to do. And then what are the duties, what are the tasks that this individual has to do and the responsibilities, what are the requirements that come with the position, the job requirements and so on. So basically, let's make an example. So you are in the um, consultancy business, and we define the job. We define the job of the maintenance guy. So the guy has to be able to make sure that all the machineries and involved in the business, the company, are fine. So he must be an expert in computers. He must be an expert in electricity. He must be sure that we have heating system. We make sure that we have a air conditioning. Must be sure that we receive all the assistance we need for the information technology and so on. And so one requirement, for example, is that this guy actually knows about information technology. Maybe he has to come with a degree in information technology or computer science or something like that. Or maybe he has to come with some previous experience in the same role, or maybe not, or maybe just needs to come with some kind of experience in general, not necessarily in the same role. So this is an example of job analysis and job descriptions. There are different methods to define the job or to make an analysis, and your book comes with 2 or 3 different methodologies. But what is important in job analysis is that allowed this job to be connected with the other jobs and with the potential progress that the entire organization is supposed to do. For example, we have to imagine that this job might change because the situation changes. So let's say right now we have an expert in maintenance because we need to make sure that, again, the electricity and power and everything works. But imagine for a second that the organization become virtual, that the maintenance will be about the connections, about the internet, but no longer about make sure that the air conditioning works because everybody's working from home. So we have to imagine, we be able to imagine that somehow the job, the definition of the job must change. We have to also to imagine that the performance of this job might change because maybe at the beginning we hire somebody with a lower experience, and then we want in 2, 3, 4 years that this individual increases or her performance. And so this is another thing that must be considered. One of the most important things to consider is the competence. So we have to define the competence. The competence are the skills. So basically what is necessary, the knowledge that is necessary, the experience that is necessary to accomplish a certain task, to do a certain job. Again, in the previous example, if I need somebody who is able to take care of the laptops and the computers of this company, well, it needs to have some competence about computer science. Otherwise, it cannot fix whatever problem the computer has. After you define the workflows, basically all the activities inside the company, and after you have analyzed the job as it is and how it will be, as there is a phase called job designing or job design, which basically means you have to really define very clearly what is the job that needs to be done, because that is the job that you eventually will offer to a candidate. So when you go around and you read, for example, a newspaper on the internet, looking for a marketing manager, we are looking for these particular individuals, and the job is about this particular activity and so on. This is what a job design is. So designing means to frame very clearly what the job is, what the candidate should be, what is supposed to be the competence of this candidate, and so on. The most important thing in designing a job is that the job must motivate whoever is going to do that job. So it must be a job not only useful for the organization, but also interesting for the individual who is going to do the job. And in your book, it's very clear that a job with more freedom, with more power, with more possibility to impact on the other people job is a job that is much more motivating than a job with no freedom, no power, and no impact on anybody, of course. Another important thing about designing a job is it's called in job enlargement. Means that, well, maybe the job at the beginning is quite narrow, small, but it can enlarge and can become bigger. And that's, of course, be depending on the ability of the individual to grow and to develop more competences. So sometimes you read on the job proposals, we are looking for an assistant marketing manager with the possibility to become marketing manager. So basically, the candidate must imagine or can imagine to have a job that is quite narrow, but eventually can be enlarged. Today, another way to job interesting is, of course, to offer flexible hours of work, the possibility to work from home, the ability to adjust the work to the current life of an individual. Finally, we have to understand that a job is today, a job is more about mental capabilities than physical capabilities. And so the job, the design of a job must consider also the possibility that this job is not mentally problematic for the people. It can, of course, it can make people tired, but not necessarily too stressed, because that is not a good job. So in chapter 5 of your book, we move to the recruitment. So on one side, we have the map of the activities. Out of a map of the activities, we have the map of the jobs that we have to cover. And of course, to cover these jobs, we need people. So we will select people, and this is something we will address in chapter 6. But in chapter 5, we have to start a planning, how to recruit these people that we desperately need to make this company effective. So first of all, we have to look at the marketplace, the job marketplace, and see if there are resources available. This seems a funny question, but in reality it's not, because imagine for a second that you want to deliver a digital transformation, and you are looking for the head of digital transformation. What is digital transformation? The job market doesn't know what you are talking about. Let's say you are looking for a financial executive in a moment in which everybody is looking for a financial executive. So everybody understands what you're looking for, but you are competing with many other companies looking for exactly the same thing. So to look at the big picture of the job market is important because it gives you the idea if these resources are actually you're looking for are actually there. Then you have to plan because, of course, maybe you have 10, 15 people to recruit, but you don't have the money yet to pay all these people. So you need to make a plan. And the plan means, okay, I have to hire these people, not hiring these people, or hiring part-time these people because I don't have all the money. Or maybe this year I hire 4 people, next year another 2, and the next year another 4. So this kind of planning is important because you also your financial resources are limited, and also the ability of the organization to absorb new resources, new individuals is limited. So you need a plan. So the opposite of recruiting is to fire people. And also this is part of planning. Of course, is more sad and more dramatic to fire people rather than to hire people. But sometimes you have to downsize the company. There is a turnaround. The economic side of a company is not good. And so you have to reduce cost. And so reducing cost means that you have to fire people. And sometimes you have to fire people and recruit people less experienced or less expensive to do the same job that the previous people were doing, but they were costing too much. And let me go back to hiring, which is the topic of this chapter. So it is not simple actually to find a right candidate because first of all, the candidate needs to know the job, basically have the skills and the competence to do the job. He or she needs to fit the culture of the company. He needs to require, or she needs to require a certain salary that is the same salary that the company is able already to pay. The individual must be available when the company require the candidate, and so on. So it's not a simple process, as we will see in chapter 6. And another thing that recruitment is involved in is what is called in the United States affirmative action, which basically means that on one side, no discrimination can be made on people because of their sex, gender, sexual orientation, race, origins, country of origins, or whatever. So basically, everybody must be plays at the same level. Every candidate is equal to the other, as far as whatever else which is not competence. So you can't decide for one candidate or the other because one candidate has more competence than the other, and not because of the color of his skin, her skin, or the gender, and so on. So these are things that don't necessarily must not impact the choice of a recruit. But affirmative action is something more than that. Affirmative action means that there are some quotas, basically some number, a percentage of people that needs to be higher coming from a minority. Why? Because usually minorities are discriminated. And so in order to make sure that no discrimination is in place, some people from minorities, Asian minorities, African American minorities, and so on, must be hired in the United States. And this idea, basically, to rebalance by law some kind of inequality, is called affirmative action. So let's say the company decides to recruit somebody. How is going to recruit? And so there are many different ways or channels. One, of course, is to make advertising on newspapers or on the internet. Today, there are aggregators that are job aggregators. Basically, they bring all the potential jobs available in one single website. Another source, of course, is to use internal resources. Basically, somebody that is already an employee of the company, and he or she can use they move to one job to another. Another possibility is that somebody is proposing himself or herself. It's called spontaneous candidate. Candidate. Basically, somebody says, "Hey, I really want to work for your company. I have this kind of experience." Or maybe somebody who says, "Hey, you know what? I don't know if you need somebody, but I know a guy." It's called referral. I know a guy that is perfect for your job, for that job, and so on. Again, there are different ways. There are also experts, basically consultants and agencies that look for potential candidates and are paid for their job because, of course, they are able to identify exactly the kind of person that you need, and they have a fantastic database, and they find exactly the guy that is perfect for you because of whatever reason. So that's are the many different ways in which recruitment can be made. So chapter 5 of your book ends with a profile of a recruiter. And of course, like any other profile is vague because different people can do the job in different ways and be effective nevertheless. Um, the recruiters have a certain impact on the candidate because the ways they present the job, the ways they present the opportunity, the ways they frame the company that is offering this job is important. Of course, is changing the perception of the candidate, and so some recruiters are very good because they are very straightforward. They say exactly what is the good part and what is the bad part of this job, what is the weaknesses and the strengths of this job. Other simply present the job and allow and let the candidate to see by himself or herself what the problems, eventually problem of the job are. So the recruiter, according to your job, is not the most important aspect of the recruitment process. But in my personal experience, it was because I accepted jobs because the recruiter suggests me to accept this job, that job, and I refused jobs because the recruiter said, I don't think this is the job for you, and for this reason, so and so. So I think in your book is minimizing the impact of the recruiter when in effect the role of a recruiter is going. So when you have a number of candidates that are submitting their resume and everything, which is the first step of the selection, now you have to start a process that will allow you to move from hundreds of proposals to the, 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 the new employee. So there is a long process that is made in order to allow the employer to select the best candidate. And that is the topic, chapter 6 of the book. So usually there are when a candidate is proposing himself or herself, the proposal is made of three different elements. First, a CV. Second, a list of reference, and third, a background check. So let me explain the three things. So usually there is a CV or resume, depending what the company is looking for, where basically there is the list of experiences, education, and practical professional experience of a candidate. Basically, is a profile of a candidate, is a short bio in which the candidate says who is she and who he or she is. Then there are a list of reference. Reference are 2 or 3 people who know the candidate and can um, 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 that they basically prove what is included in the CV, and they put their reputation on the line to express their admiration and on the candidate. So basically, the reference, the people providing reference are providing credibility to the candidate. And then there is a background check. So the background check is something that is made by the company to verify if everything that is included in the reference and in the resume is true, because some people can lie. And so if the candidate says, "Hey, I received a degree from that university," the company called the university and says, "Hey, I have a candidate here. His name is so and so. He says that he received a degree from you. Is it true?" And the university says, "Yes, it's true. It was in 1999, and it's true." Okay, fine. Okay, click. Or, I have a candidate here. He says that he's worked for you for 6 years as a marketing manager. Is it true? Yes, it's true. He worked here from 2006 to 2012. Okay, thank you. So basically, if the candidate is honest, the background check means to nothing. But if the candidate is dishonest, well, the background check will reveal the lie, all the, I would say, um, 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 untrue statement that he made or she made. Apart from the resume checklist and the reference, then there is another part which might be implemented or not, which is a test. So there are many different kind of tests, and your book comes with many. So it can be physical test because the job is physical. For example, I'm looking for a nurse that it can move people with mobility problems. And so I have to test if this lady or this man is able actually to move people with a problem of mobility. Or there are cognitive tests, means intellectual tests to make sure that, for example, the candidate has analytical skills or ability to synthesize a huge amount of information. Or there are work samples. Example, if a candidate is for a job in design, the candidate brings some design to show what he or she is able to do. Of course, there are tests about drugs and alcohol to make sure that people is not an alcoholic or a drug um, um, practitioner. There are medical examinations to make sure that the candidate is fine and is healthy, and so he can do his or her job. And then there is the very famous interview that actually can be a chain of interviews. Sometimes it's only one interview, and sometimes are 4 or 5 interviews, one after the other, not the same day, but in different days, because every time the candidate is going to know different people and meet different people who are asking the same question, different questions. And so different angles through which the candidate is tested. So interviews can be easy or difficult depending on how they are structured. So there are interviews that are focusing on the personality of the candidate, how he reacts under stress, or how he she reacts under stress, how he or she is able to manage the questions coming from different side, or might be very much more professional, means more deeply into the content, questions about accounting, about the balance sheet, questions about the long-term accounting principles, short-term accounting principles, how to manage the inventory in the financial plan. So it can be different things. And usually the interview is probably the most important piece of the selection, because it allows finally the candidate to see the representatives of the employee, and for the representatives to see the candidate. And then the decision must be made. And so there is a group of people that come together and put together all the elements, all the details, all the information they collect about the single candidates, and make a decision. And sometimes the decision is unanimous, and sometimes the decision is not. It depends, because sometimes everybody identify in the same way the right candidate. And sometimes there are different ideas. I think this one is the best. The other guy said, no, I think the other guy is the best, and so on. And finally, the decision is made, and the decision is communicated to the candidates. Well, this is what the book says, but normally nobody is communicating anything to the candidates that actually didn't get the job. The only one who received a communication in this world today is the candidate that actually received the job. And so I usually receive a call, or receive a letter, or receive an email that says, we're very happy to tell you that we selected you. And so the next step will be so and so. So it's a long process. It can take a few days, it can take a few weeks, it can take months, depending of the complexity of the search, the complexity of the job, and of course, the situation of the market, job market out there. If there are many candidates, the problem is to select the right one. If there are no candidates, because there is no, or very few candidates, the problem is to increase the number of candidates in order to have a better chance to find the right candidate. And that's basically the end of your chapter 6.